Just waiting a little while to see who joins. Thought we could listen to some soca. I am ready for a Caribbean vacation, boy. Let's see. It says I'm live, but I don't see anything. I don't see anyone on. Okay. I can't see who's on, so with my new, oh, I see some people. Hello. Hi. Okay, I have to go back and forth between my windows here because I couldn't see who was on and who was not. Hi, Meredith. But thought we could listen to a little bit of music before we start. Let's see. Trying to get you guys all in the mood, okay? For that Caribbean vacation. I don't know if you could hear that. Okay. We have a few people on, so I'm going to turn off the music, unfortunately. Sorry, but I don't know if you could hear me, but or hear the music that well. I'm practicing on a new platform, so I unfortunately can't see everything everybody says. I'm trying to run two screens at the same time, so if I don't comment right away, yes, Brenda, I am jamming. I figured it's a good way to get the day started. Plus, it's Friday. The weekend's here, you know? Okay, so today, thanks for joining me today. I wanted to share a little bit of information on the Caribbean. I chose the Caribbean as the first region to cover because because of its proximity and its accessibility, it is a popular destination. Well, the islands are popular destinations for people, at least here on the East Coast of the United States, right? And it's summertime, kids are out of school, people have been cooped up for months. They're like, where can we go? What can we do? So I thought it would be a great way to, reason to come on live and to share some information on the different islands, when they're opening, what are their restrictions, if any, and what are the requirements that they're putting in place. I will say, once again, as I mentioned in my last live, this information is as of today. It could change tomorrow. It could change in a week, right? We've seen that there's been an increase in COVID cases over the last couple of weeks. Of course, there's also been more testing, so that may be a result of it. Of the increases, I don't know. I'm not a health professional, but so things are subject to change. And a lot of these islands, as you'll see when I share the information, are really kind of waiting it out a little bit just to see what happens. And some dates are tentative. And obviously, like I said, subject to change. So let's start with, let me see if you guys can, hopefully you can see which countries are currently open. I'm hoping that you guys can see. Can you guys see that list of countries? Somebody let me know if you can see it. No? Anybody? I'm trying to use a new platform, and it's sometimes hard to see what you guys are seeing. This is one of the questions. Oh, nope, you can't. Okay. Let me try this again. No. Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I'm going to figure this out eventually, but for whatever reason, you're supposed to be able to see copy or words on my screen, and they're not showing up. All right. Well, let's get into this, and then I will figure it out. So currently today, um, the islands that are open are Antigua and Barbuda. Um, they actually opened at the beginning of the month, and they are they have rapid tests on arrival. So once you get to the island, you're able to get tested. They are requiring that you wear masks in public. This is the case across all the islands. I'm not going to repeat that over and over again. I mean, for the most part, just much like here. Not that it's not necessarily a requirement here, but I think a lot of people are kind of not too thrilled with people who don't wear their masks, right? In the islands, it's actually a requirement. And when you arrive at in Antigua or Barbuda, you have to complete a health declaration form and a traveler accommodation form. The traveler accommodation form is to help. Thanks, Brenda. Is to help with contact tracing. So let's say somebody test positive for COVID, they're able to go back and kind of track to see who they were in contact with or what general vicinity they were in with other people, and they can notify you if, God forbid, something comes up. Jamaica. So Jamaica actually opened earlier this week on June 15th. To travel to Jamaica, you must complete a travel authorization application. And actually they have this on the visitjamaica.com site. So if you go, you can actually fill it out online. It is a requirement. You will not be able to travel to the island without completing this. It's essentially a COVID health risk assessment. They just want to see how at risk you are of having contracted COVID. So it is something that you must fill out before you go. I will also, one thing I want to preface, and I'll preface this, I'll say it again later. Just because an island is open does not necessarily mean that that the hotel or the property that you've decided to stay at is open, right? So I know it kind of seems like, well, why wouldn't it be? But there are cases like, I want to say in Jamaica, like Sandals is not open, right? They're not going to be open till later. So you just want to kind of don't assume that because the island is open, the properties are all open. That might not be the case. You definitely need to check with the requirements of the country, the open dates. You need to check with the property, and you should also check with the airlines to make sure, everything is still scheduled as it was before. So that's Jamaica. St. Lucia. St. Lucia is open. They are requiring a certified COVID-19 negative test, or you need to have proof that you took a test and that you're negative. You are, once you're on the island, subject to temperature checks while you're there. They opened on June 4th. They have different phases. I wasn't able to see what the different phases entail, but I know June 4th, the airport was opening. It was opening to international travelers. Hotels on the island are required to complete this certification of COVID-19 protocols. So any hotels, they won't be able to open unless they complete that certification. So once they do that, they're able to open up to the public. And again, face masks are required. Another point I wanted to make, and not that anybody goes on vacation thinking like, hey, when are airlifts available? But for some reason, they made a point to mention this, that no airlifts are available until July 7th. So if, God forbid, there is an emergency and you have to be airlifted out of the island, no way of doing that until July 7th. The other point I want to make about St. Lucia is that there seems to be some discrepancies, because I was tracking a conversation between some other agents, and they were saying that while the website for St. Lucia is indicating all of these things, right, like that they're open, that they're starting, that you have to have a certification COVID-19, you have to have a certified test result, that some of the things that they're doing has not changed. So there are some differences there, and their website doesn't reflect that. So again, just do your research. prior to booking anything, just to make sure that you're completely up to date with any changes or information. Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is open. Officially for tourism, it's open on July 15th. So as somebody who has family in Puerto Rico, I can go to Puerto Rico if I want to. However, you will have to quarantine for 14 days. I don't know if that restriction is, or that requirement is going to be lifted come July 15th. I haven't seen any mention of it. So I can't say that come July 15th, that's going to be the case for those who want to go there for tourism reasons. But as of today, if you go to Puerto Rico, you have to quarantine for 14 days. U.S. Virgin Islands are open. However, I read during my research that flights are really limited to the islands. And from what I understand, they're currently under a state of emergency until July 11th, which to me would mean that there's a lot of limitations just in terms of things you can do or see, right? So just something to think about. So those are the countries, those are the 5 islands that today are open. We're going to move on to the countries that are, or the islands that are opening later this month. There's only 2 of them. One is Grenada, which is June 30th. And this is a little deceiving because they're opening on June 30th, but it's very limited. It's really going to be just regional travel. It's not opening to international travelers. So I don't know that there's really much we're going to be able to do in terms of going to Grenada if you want to go there at this point. They haven't specified an actual date for international travelers. St. Barts is opening on June 22nd. They are requiring that you produce a COVID negative test that has been obtained within 72 hours of your arrival at the island. And if you, for some reason, can't get that test prior to leaving, you have to agree to a test at your arrival at the island, and then you have to quarantine in your hotel until you get the test results. And usually they're saying that takes on average about 24 hours. Now, here's the thing. Unlike any other island, St. Barts is also saying that if you're there for longer than 7 days, on the 7th day, you need to be retested, because they want to make sure that you didn't contract the virus at some point between getting there and the 7th day, right? Or that maybe you tested, it was like a positive negative, or I can't think of how you say that, but you were technically positive, but you were positive, but it came back negative, right? Your original test. So on the 7th day, you'll have to do a retest if you want to stay on the island for longer than a week. Okay, so those are the 2 that are opening later in June. Here are the islands that are opening in July, and they all have slightly different dates. Aruba is opening on July 10th to the USA. It is opening on July 1st to the rest of the islands, with the exception of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. I had read somewhere that the Dominican Republic got hit pretty hard with COVID. So my thinking is that that's probably why they're putting those restrictions on those 2 islands. But for USA, July 10th, in order to enter Aruba, you need to have done testing, and you need to be able to show that you're negative, and you have to have done the testing 72 hours before. And you're also going to be subject to temperature checks during the time that you're there. Barbados. So Barbados is slated, or so they say they're slated to open in July, but there's no specific date at this time, and they have not issued, at least anything I've seen, in regards to testing protocols or requirements of the sort. So if you are interested in going to Barbados at some point in this summer, my suggestion is that you visit their tourism site, because you'll see a lot of the information, the requirements on there. Bahamas. So actually, Bahamas opens up on June 15th, but only to international boaters, yachters, and citizens. They're going to open on July 1st to international travelers, and you will have to provide a COVID negative test, like proof. You'll have to provide proof that you tested negative. Bonaire is opening on July 1st, but to only certain countries, and the United States is not on that list, unfortunately. I don't know when that's going to open up to the USA. My assumption here is that they're probably going to see how things go with Aruba first before they decide to open. Obviously, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, they're very much connected, and people transfer between the islands pretty freely. So that's my take on it. Right now, they're only going to open to the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, and Germany. And apparently, those countries were chosen because they didn't have a high rate of COVID. Bermuda. So Bermuda is opening on July 1st, and you will have to show proof of COVID-19 negative test. COVID-19 negative test prior to departure, not at arrival. So before you can even get on your flight, you need to show that you have a test and that you were negative. Belize. So what I've read about Belize is that they have a pending open date of July 1st. I think, Belize is actually one of the only countries that's COVID free. So I think they're just kind of playing it carefully and just trying to ensure that, if they do go open July 1st, that they're not putting themselves at risk. Curacao, I just mentioned. So Curacao, again, is much like Bonaire, doesn't have a specific date. I think they're going to wait to see how it happens, how everything works out with Aruba, since Aruba is the bigger of the three islands. Dominica does not have a specific date in July. But it is going to be opening in July, but limited travel for regional travel. So more like inter-island travel. Okay. And then we have Turks and Caicos. Now, I know this is a favorite for a lot of people, so just want to talk a little bit about that. So Turks and Caicos is opening on July 22nd, so later in the month. They have not announced anything in terms of testing requirements and protocols. My assumption is that they will announce that as they get closer to the date. I'm sure that they're going to put in, that they're going to require testing. They just haven't specified it yet. Dominican Republic. So the Dominican Republic is opening on July 1st. They have not announced anything in regards to testing being required or any other protocols or any other requirements that they're going to have. So all they're saying is July 1st, we will be open. Okay. Next are countries that are opening in August. The first one is Cuba. Now, I know Cuba is a little, for U.S. citizens anyways, we're limited in terms of what we can do or how we can travel to Cuba. But, we know that Cubans here in the United States can travel to Cuba to see their family. So Cuba is scheduled to open in August. They don't have a specific date. They did say that charter flights may be allowed earlier. They also did state that when they do open, it will be under really, really strict regulations, and you will only be able to travel to specific places. And right now they're stating that it will probably be the Cuban Keys, and that testing will be required upon arrival. And then last but not least is St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts they're stating that they're going to open in August. They haven't set an exact date yet. And to be honest, this is not even official. I think it's more of the we'll wait and see situation. September, opening in September. God, September. Oh, that seems like so far away. We have 3 islands that are pending opening in September. One, Anguilla. They haven't set an exact date, but their borders are closed to anybody and everything until June 30th anyways. So we'll have to wait a little while to go enjoy Anguilla. The British Virgin Islands, The British Virgin Islands, all they have is September 2020. They haven't set an exact date either. And then the same thing with the Cayman Islands. They're saying September. They haven't set a date. And actually, even as of now, early in June, they're saying that date or the month of September is highly unlikely. So, a lot of these smaller islands, they're really kind of just being very cautious. They don't want to put their residents at risk. Then we have several islands that are still TBD. Okay, Guadeloupe, still TBD. Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent's and Grenadine. So here's an interesting thing about St. Vincent's and Grenadine. They're actually open, but there are no commercial flights going in and out of the island. So I included it in TBD because you're open, but I have no way of getting there. So to me, they're still TBD, right? And even if you do go to the island, let's say you go via, like a boat, you have to quarantine for 14 days. They're making it a requirement. St. Martin, still TBD. Saba, Martinique, and Montserrat are all still TBD as well. So, as I mentioned, these are all subject to change, right? Like a lot of this is being changed on a day-by-day basis. So as you decide to start making plans, just ensure that you have some flexibility with your whomever you're using, that, and from a cancellation, make sure you buy travel insurance. Although I have to say at this point, travel insurance is not going to cover you for COVID cancellation reasons. But in case you get sick, you need to be quarantined, like anything of that sort, like at least you'll have the backing of travel insurance, right? As I mentioned before, just remember, because the country is open does not necessarily mean that every hotel is open. So definitely make sure that you're up to date on the particular property that you want to stay at, so that you know, one, if they have any requirements, two, what type of service or amenities are still available to you. Like, one thing I've been telling people is, if you choose to travel, that's fine. Just know that it's not back to normal. Like, you're not going to be getting the same level of service that you were getting pre-COVID, right? So just keep that in mind and make sure that you ask all those questions so that you can manage your expectations as you go somewhere. I had someone mention to me about traveling versus not traveling, and that I shouldn't be advocating travel during these times. Look, I'm not advocating anyone to travel or not to travel, okay? I think that those are very personal decisions. My job, at least when it comes to my clients, is to state the facts so that they can make a more informed decision, okay? I do encourage everyone that if you do go out there, you do start to travel, that you take on those safety precautions, right? Wear a mask, abide by the social distancing, guidelines that are in place, and keep yourself and those around you safe, so that you don't end up in a situation where you're sick, or you have to go to the hospital, or whatever the case may be, particularly if you're in another country. Okay. And like I said, don't expect things to be normal. Our idea of normal, right? What it was pre-COVID, because it's not. Hotels are at either operating at 50% capacity or 50% staff. They're trying where they can to put contactless processes in place so that they're coming less in less contact with you, and for your safety as well, you're coming in contact with other people less. So things are not going to be the same. You may not be able to get room service in certain hotels, and if you're okay with that, hey, that's fine, right? But just know that you may be paying to stay somewhere and not have certain amenities that you're used to. And so I think at the end of the day, it's up to you whether you're okay with that or not. And if you're not and you're uncomfortable with it, then maybe it's worth rebooking at another time. Okay. So with that said, I'll get off my soapbox and just say thank you to everyone for coming, for joining me on this live. Next week on Monday, I'll have a live on, and I'll cover Central America and South America. I'm going to include Mexico in there as well, even though Mexico is not part of Central America, it's part of North America, but I didn't cover it when I talked about the United States, because I was really just focusing on the States. So we'll cover those three regions, talk a little bit about what those open dates look like, what restrictions and requirements will be taking place across those regions as well. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm sorry that my my language wasn't showing up on the screen. I have to figure that out. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, have a wonderful Friday. Have a beautiful weekend. I hope to see you guys on Monday. And then I'll also be scheduling lives to talk about Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands as well. So look out for those dates. And like I said, if you have any questions, reach out. I'm here. Thanks for joining me. Have a wonderful day.